call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. I have a couple of little housekeeping items. Remind you, if you would please turn your cell phones off. If you must take the call, take it outside. If you are an applicant, you'll have 10 minutes to speak. If you're just going to speak on the topic, you'll have 2 minutes. And when you come up, be sure to speak into the microphone so that we can get it on record. And let's have everybody in the audience be courteous of everybody else and have no booing or shouting or anything like that. So let's act like adults. I did have a request to change items 1 and 2 in the order. There was a request by the property owner. They had a conflict. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that for them. But first, I need approval of the minutes for the April 24th meeting. Any discussion? A motion? Brenda?
I'll second that.
And Carolyn seconds. Okay, Adrian?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
Matt?
Yes.
Thank you. Amy?
Yes.
Weston?
Yes.
Sarah?
Abstain.
Clark?
Yes.
And Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. The chair has nothing to report. Does the vice chair have anything to report?
I do not.
All right. And the director?
I don't have anything to report. Quiet.
Nothing, huh?
Well, I mean, I can let you know that continuing our trend this year, April is the busiest April we've ever had as far as number of applications. So,
Oh, boy.
January, February, and April so far have been the busiest January, February, and Aprils we've ever had. So that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Did not know that.
Okay, we'll move on to, we're going to do item 2, the zoning map amendment for 402 and 416 East 9th South first. Lauren?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I remembered.
You did. Awesome, thanks. Okay, so Mary Warner Demuri, the project architect representing the property owner, Kathia Dang, is requesting a zoning map amendment to rezone the properties at approximately 402 and 416 East 900 South from CN Neighborhood Commercial and the RB Residential Business Zoning Districts to the CB Community Business District. The primary reason for this rezone request is to rectify the split zoning on the property at 416 East 900 South, where the Southeast Asian market currently sits and has sat since the early 40s. As you'll see on the map, the property falls within both the neighborhood commercial and residential business zoning districts, which is unusual for a single property. The property owners would like to rehab the market building and potentially construct a new mixed-use building on the northeast corner of the site, and this split zoning would make it difficult as different parts of the lot would have different zoning requirements. I do want to mention that the initial request was just for the property at 416 East 900 South, and then staff recommended that they include 402 to keep the block face consistent in terms of zoning. Here's another view of the lots, and as you can see, the 9th and 9th node to the east, that circle there, is also zoned community business, which is what they're requesting. The applicants are looking to rezone the site to community business for multiple reasons. The first is that the existing neighborhood commercial district does not allow for lots greater than 16,500 square feet in area, and the existing lot at 416 is just over 30,000 square feet. The existing RB zone district, RB zone, is also limiting as it allows a single unit above first floors within mixed-use buildings, so no more than the single unit. Overall, the applicants feel that their vision for the property best aligns with the purpose statement of the community business district, which discusses close integration of moderately sized commercial areas with adjacent residential neighborhoods. So then here is the applicant's concept plan for the overall site, but just keep in mind that this rezone isn't contingent on any development plans, and it would just be changing the zoning. In general, the zoning requirements within the two existing districts and the proposed CB district are relatively similar. One difference is that the CB zone doesn't have front or corner yard setbacks, which would bring any new building constructed closer to the street. Height is similar in the existing and proposed district, so 25 feet in the CN zone, and then 30 feet in the RB zone and 30 feet in the proposed CB zone. So overall, the zoning district standards within the proposed CB zoning district would not produce a building dramatically different in terms of size and scale than what could be constructed here today. The uses permitted in the proposed CB zone may be considered slightly more intense than what is currently permitted on the site. This list up on the screen indicates the uses that are either permitted or conditional in the proposed CB zone that would not be permitted or conditional in either of the existing zones. Keep in mind that though a use may be permitted, there may be other requirements to accommodate that specific use that the site may or may not be able to accommodate. So attendees at the Liberty Wells Community Council meeting appeared to be in general support of the rezone request. Some questions were asked about height and parking. Again, the height permitted in the proposed district is 30 feet. The Manoli's building is 30 feet for your reference. Any new use on the site must accommodate the same amount of parking that's required under current zoning, as parking is tied to the land use that's on the site. If the uses in the market building were to change and have higher parking requirements, additional parking shall be provided in the amount by which the requirements for the intensified use exceed those for the existing use. So as the request generally aligns with the guiding standards for zoning map amendments, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission forward on a positive recommendation to City Council. Thanks. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Lauren right now? No? Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Well, so with most of the block face is, well, that area is set back, like a lot of them are houses and stuff. And this goes all the way to the property line that they could build to, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, but they don't have to build up to the property line. There's a maximum setback of 15 feet, I believe. So you are able to go to a zero lot line, but you don't have to. And I think, although this, or go ahead.
Do you think that going to a zero lot line is appropriate for this kind of street, given that the rest of the street doesn't have that sort of build, or?
So and it's kind of, because this is its own block face with these two properties, and then the blocks to the east and west, they are set back a bit, but I think if they were to set it back slightly, and they could still keep it in a general alignment, and then since it's its own block, it would be distinguished.
But they wouldn't need to keep it set back if they didn't want to. They could, but they don't need to.
No, they don't have to.
Okay,
Isn't
thanks.
the current building right up to the public right-of-way?
I think they have on their concept plan here that it's 11 feet. Am I reading that?
Well, but I'm talking about the existing building.
The market building?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have that measurement there on the right-hand side, and I think it's a similar distance, and that's 11 feet. So I think
Oh,
the
it is
market
11
building
feet?
would be around 11 feet from the property line.
Currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
All right, no? Okay, if you'll step back and we'll bring the applicant up. Be sure to I need you to say your name into the microphone, and you have 10 minutes.
Minutes, okay. My name is Kathia Dang. I'm the property owner. The purpose of the meeting here tonight, I actually came in here with a different dialogue altogether, but to be perfectly honest, I came in here with somewhat of a heavy heart because of our direct involvement with another neighborhood just up the street, the 9th and 9th District, and the repurposing of the public parking stalls up the street that affect the neighborhood as a whole. So having just shared that with you, I just want you to know that initially and all along, our intentions are very much to develop in accordance to what the neighborhood's needs are. That has not changed. But in consideration of what the public does need and the growing population and in support of small businesses, we do want to effectively and constructively develop a property that is conducive to use for everyone. We have the luxury of having a very large parking lot, and according to the plans, as you can see, the ones that we are proposing, we are not taking down the Asian market. We are actually just proposing that we actually shrink it down a little bit, adding more parking and opening up Grace Court for accessibility to the neighboring properties around us. At one time, we considered perhaps adding a secondary property building onto the lot. At this time, with sort of the argument of where we stand as a community and also as an individual trying to develop this property, we are taking into consideration all and as many parking spots as possible so that it doesn't deter visitors from coming down our way in support of any businesses that might have an interest in occupying the space. We also want to add the fact that we would like to eventually propose some much needed affordable live-work spaces. Therefore, the proposal of the rezone might allow us to do so. But ultimately, our plan is the fact that we are given this situation of a split zone over not just a parcel, a section of our property, but the fact that it splits directly over the property in and of itself really ties us to not being able to do much to it. So we're just asking for a congruent rendering of give us a congruent zone, whether that be the CN, which apparently it doesn't meet because of, given the square footage, RB if need be, because that's what we've settled for at Manoli's, and we'll work with that. But CB, just because it gives us an opportunity to give back to the community and develop this beautiful piece of property in support of what the community might need and want to see. Thank you for your time.
Questions for the applicant? Anyone? Okay, I guess you got off light. No questions. So if you'll step back, we'll open the public hearing. Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone from the community council that wishes to speak on this? No. Okay, I have a card here from Kelly Margits. Come on up, state your name into the microphone, and you have 2 minutes.
My name is Kelly Margits. Thanks for having me. Listen, I'm a neighbor in this neighborhood, and this whole situation has got way out of control. If you can see up there where she wants to put this building up there, that's actually where she unloads freight. There is no freight loading zone for this property, for this great big supermarket. I live right back behind there. There's a one-way street. That turns into a loading zone, so you can't even egress your property of where you might have to go through her parking lot. Well, now she wants to put a building where you might have to go through the parking lot. She's controlling this area, and that being said, it's getting rather dangerous because out of these semi-trucks, you get a forklift that's going up and down the public right-of-way. I oppose this matter because we don't have enough information. I haven't been provided enough information with exactly what wants to go on here. So I'm asking simply the council to table this matter until we get more information and we can at least be safe, myself as a resident, the rest of my neighbors, et cetera, and so forth, and not just accommodate. She also owns a building on the very exit point. It's called Manoli's. That's another place that just puts semis and you can't get around. It's just utterly dangerous. And again, I haven't been provided with enough information based on that one particular square on that tile up in the right-hand corner of exactly what's going on. So I think it would be in everyone's best interest, again, to table this matter until we get more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back up to the commission. Do we want staff back, the applicant back?
For staff,
Staff, Lauren?
can you address his comment about loading and unloading zones and how a zoning change may or may not impact that in a future development?
Well, similar uses are allowed in the existing and the proposed district that both require loading and unloading, and we don't really regulate that with the zoning code, so I can't speak that much to zoning. And if there are, I can speak to zoning, but loading and unloading, and if there are issues, it would be more of an enforcement issue.
And then can you just walk me through real quick? So it seems like much of that block face is currently residential business, kind of up and down. I mean, not just that block face in particular, but the rest of the street. And can you just walk me through why community business district is more appropriate than just changing? I can see just changing community neighborhood CN to CB. Why not just change the whole zone to be RB?
I think RB is geared towards converting. There's a lot of single-family homes along 900 South there in that corridor, and converting those homes into businesses, but yet retaining the residential character. That's one element of RB, and RB is more restrictive in general. And in terms of they would like, as they mentioned, to do a mixed-use building, and that limits a building to only one unit above a ground floor.
RB. You could do multifamily in RB.
Yes, I believe so. I can double check for you.
Yeah, when it's mixed use, it limits the number of residential. Ironically, multifamily's allowed, but has a standalone
Right.
use.
And then it's kind of, I mean, 9th South there is kind of a weird street, right? Because you got all these like commercial businesses and residential homes. Does the master plan call for changing it to being more of a commercial corridor, or what's the master plan call for in the area?
The master plan recognizes that this is a commercial area down from State Street. It calls specifically, I think, for, is it low-density mixed use? Yeah, low residential mixed use. So it's kind of like both of these districts could accommodate a similar type of thing that is called out in the master plan. But the problem with CN, as I mentioned, is it limits lot size, and this is a bigger lot size that wouldn't be allowed.
Do you know when the master plan for that area was last updated?
The community, or central city.
For this area, it was 2005.
2005. 15 years ago. And how often in general, what's the best practice for how often, because I know you guys don't have the funding to do how often are master plans usually updated?
Honestly, it depends on how much change
Happens.
a city expects or wants to see. So for a corridor like this, where historically we've wanted to kind of maintain the character of it, meaning we're okay, the plan and the city has decided that, we're okay with homes converting to businesses and things like that. but we don't necessarily want to see out of scale development. And that's why the master plan calls it for low density mixed use, because, you know, these 2-3-story buildings are kind of the top end of that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
I have kind of a generic question that applies to this, but applies to other projects like this, because we've had zone changes come in before that are not particularly attached to a project, and I know that that's not really the consideration with zone
Right.
changes. But like, what compels us to do it? Like, what's the point? Is there are we supposed to accommodate the property owner, or are we trying to look at what the interest of the public is, or what the master plan, or you know, what should we be looking at when we're considering a zone change that doesn't have a project attached to it?
Well, kind of all those things that you mentioned, and there are guiding standards for map amendments. One thing is the master plan. One thing is if how a rezone would affect adjacent property owners. Another thing is if the site could accommodate development in the new zone. And there's another big one. Oh, if it aligns with kind of the purpose of the zoning ordinance. But in this case in particular, they have a split zone that needs to be rectified. And so that's another thing to consider.
And so that is something that is a standard or is important to the city to clarify those split zones.
It's not a standard, but
It is something that we try to avoid whenever we can.
And then, so then as, I guess this is with everything we do, but like, if an applicant, if somebody comes in with an application to change the zone, as long as we see that it meets the standards of analysis, then we say, yeah, there isn't, that's what compels us to do it, is that the application was submitted. It's not that that we should be looking for any greater public good in this zone change.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of the standards hit on the general impact and general public good in terms of the impact of surrounding property owners. So.
Okay, thanks.
I would also say it's for the city council to make the evaluation based on their legislative discretion as opposed to our analysis, which should be limited to the planning-related issues.
Right, gotcha.
Anyone else? Comments? We ready for a motion? Anyone?
I'm willing to make a motion.
Thank you, Adrian.
Based on the findings and analysis in the staff report, testimony, and discussion at the public hearing, I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council approve the proposed zoning map amendment petition PLN PCM 2018-01025 to rezone the properties at 402 and 416 East 900 South from CN Neighborhood Commercial District and the RB Residential Business District to CB Community Business District.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Clerk? Any discussion? Okay. Matt, go.
Just one last question. I mean, never mind.
Okay.
Like, I'm just wondering my thought about this block face. To me, it seems like the block face thing is bugging me. And I don't know if it's because like up the street at 9th and 9th, like we kind of have this hodgepodge of zoning kind of zones and it's happening in other places, but that we have had on 11th where, you know, we talk about this on 11th, like maintain the block, and am I too held up on this? I mean, because the rest of the stuff, height, use, seems all fine.
I mean, in terms of the front yard setback? Well, we kind of looked at it like it's its own individual block face, and it's this little commercial node, and front yard setbacks or closer setbacks might kind of distinguish it as this little hub. And they're also proposing maybe some outdoor dining. There's also kind of a big park strip there that is an additional buffer from the street, not from the sidewalk. But I do see what you're saying in terms of aligning with the buildings to the east and west, but they don't have to push it up all the way to the property line,
But they can.
but they can.
Thanks.
Are we ready to vote? Brenda?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Weston?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Matt?
No.
Carolyn?
Agree.
And Adrian?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move back to item 1, the 27th Street Collective Subdivision and Plan Development. Lex.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. This is a request for approval from the city to develop 5 residential lots on 2 properties located at approximately 868 East, 2700 South, and 2716 South, 900 East. These properties are adjacent to each other. It's kind of an L-shaped, and they have different frontages, but it's one contiguous piece of land. There is an existing home on the 2700 South property that will be demolished, and then the home on the 900 East property will remain. The project requires subdivision and plan development approval, as indicated there. This is the subject property, and you can see that it does have double frontage, 900 East and 2700 South. And this is the configuration of the proposed lots. A couple lots on 27 South and a couple lots behind those lots, and then the one on 900 East. This is a project that I refer to as a boomerang project, meaning we've dealt with this once and it did not see fruition, and it has come back to us for another go-around. This project was heard by the Planning Commission in November of 2016, along with the request to rezone this property from R1 7000 to R1 5000. So they are seeking a 5,000 square foot lots. And the reason they are before you is because they are wanting to create lots without street frontage, and that's required in the city's ordinance. So these lots here, 3 and 4, would be lots without the street frontage. They are looking to have a reduced front yard setback on those lots, as well as they're looking to average the lot sizes. So this lot here is I think over 6,000 square feet, if I remember correctly. This one might be just shy of 5,000, but overall, the development density meets the R15. It wouldn't have any more opportunity for further density. What else do I want to say?
How are the current lots configured? Is this just one lot that's,
No, it's actually 2.
it's 2?
Yeah, so this lot number 5 here is actually, I believe, deeper. Like
Okay.
maybe the lot line's back here.
But it's just one there and then the
Yeah,
larger
and then
one
this
up
other
Okay.
property. So it's only 2 properties.
Thanks.
So Lex, I just want to clarify, are they asking for the reduced setback only on the interior
Yeah, on 3 and
homes,
4.
not on the 27th South or 9th East?
Right,
Well,
only
9th
on
East stays.
on lots 3 and 4.
Okay.
This is the exact same project. I need to mention that was approved by the Planning Commission back in 2016. But at that time, the applicant had indicated an easement here from, this is Sierra Park Circle or Claiborne Circle, and it was proposed at that time that Lot 3 would take access off of that cul-de-sac. They were never able to hammer out an easement agreement, so that fell through. And subsequently, time passed and his approvals expired. So the proposal you see before you will, all these lots, 1, 2, 3, and 4 will take access of.
So can you kind of go over, I guess we're calling them 3 and 4, because if I remember when I read it right, all of the setbacks meet the ordinance except for the front. So are they oriented towards 27th, and that's technically their front yard?
Yes, that's correct.
And what are the setbacks again on, so 20 feet on the south side? What are the side yard setbacks again?
In the R15, I believe it's 4 and 10.
So 4 feet on either side, and then
They have ample room on those lots for the side yard, and they can make the rear yard too. It's just the front yard that they're asking for relief.
okay.
That makes sense? Here's another illustration of what they're thinking. So these lots 3 and 4, these houses would be oriented towards 2700 South. This would be the front yard, and that's where they're seeking the relief from the Planning Commission. They would meet all other yard requirements. So we have reviewed this project. We've provided our analysis in the staff report. We've determined that the proposal meets a couple of planned development objectives. The first to do with housing, and the second to do with the master plan implementation. In my mind, it's the master plan implementation that is kind of key here. We have had public comment. You have written comment in your packet. I've had telephone calls. The major concerns that I've heard have been regarding that access that was proposed earlier off of Claiborne Circle, which is not on the table tonight. And the community council provided a letter that is also in your packet, and in general, they're supportive of the project. And at this time, planning staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve the subdivision and the plan development request as proposed at those addresses. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to entertain those for you.
Questions for Les? No, I guess you're off the hook for the moment.
All right, if you need me, I will
Is the applicant
return.
here? Come up, state your name for the record, and then you'll have 10 minutes.
Colin Strasser, and this is, this is my builder, Mark Stevenson of Red Mountain Construction, or Red Mountain Builders. As Lex said, we're back here again, only with a better product, one that has even better access than we proposed before, and one that I think will be, we'll be able to build on and create a very nice product here. Let me touch on some of the details that were just touched on. So, the front two lots will be very consistent with the block face, and they'll be very consistent in size with all the other houses of the neighborhood and on 27th, and they will front and look towards 27th, and then the garage will be located in the back, so entry will be from the south. The access we've procured an easement on an established easement and reestablished the easement along the right side there. And that currently is used by the duplex that's on the corner there. And they have a little carport there, and they have 4 cars that park there. And so we're proposing to basically extend and then kind of angle that in, giving access to all four lots. And then the house on 9th, which is 2716 South, that house will remain, and I plan to sell that at a below market rate so that it is affordable and is something that members of the community that are making 80% of the average median income can afford. And so that's kind of a strength of the project and something we're excited that we get to do as a result of applying for the plan unit development. And one of the things that we also really like about the configuration is we think that the configuration allows for a lot of interactions with not only the members of the community there, but also with the duplex, and kind of bringing that more from being kind of an isolated duplex on the corner and kind of into the subdivision as well. So, yeah, if there's any questions, I would be more than happy to answer it. And if there's anything, Mark, you'd like to add?
Yeah, so can you go and explain the configuration of the carport and how they're getting in again? Because I didn't quite follow
So
the
nothing will
visualization.
change for them. The only thing we're going to do is basically redo and you know, make it more aesthetically pleasing, the already established you know, driveway. And nothing will change for them. And the owner of the property is Sam Richardson, who wanted to be here, but something came up, and he's on board for the project, and was gracious enough to allow us to, you know, increase the burden on the easement that runs over his property, and he's very excited for the improvements to happen.
Is that going to be recorded? Are you going to record some?
We have.
You already have? Great.
So on the driveway, we will be putting in a new driveway approach, driveway surface, and additionally we'll be doing some landscaping to enhance that area of 27 South. There's a Reagan sign on the corner that we will try to update their landscaping. They still need access to the sign, but we're trying to do some zeros.
You can't take away the sign?
Oh, well, accidentally maybe.
Don't say that.
Good luck with Reagan.
But we want to enhance the corner somewhat with landscape, paint the sign, make it as pleasing as possible, but it's also an entry into the subdivision, so we're trying to make everything look, you know, as best we can with new landscape.
Yeah, and that's all subject to, you know, Reagan and negotiations with them that are ongoing.
Any more questions?
I'm kind of curious about the third lot. And I know that the previous plan was to have the access to the Claiborne Circle, right? And now that's not the case anymore.
Sure.
But does it, if you're on that circle, does it look like there's oddly the back of a house facing the circle? Or how are you situating? Are you situating it so that it essentially looks like it's fronting the circle? It's just kind of I mean, I applaud you for being creative with the placement, because it's an interesting lot, but I wasn't able to go on the field trip, so I don't have a visual of how that would look.
I mean, it will be the back of the house that'll be as seen from the Sierra Park Circle. Sierra Park Circle is a community of duplexes that have carports in front of them.
Okay.
It is not the most aesthetically pleasing subdivision I've seen. With that said, you know, these will be very, I mean, I hopefully these are beautiful houses, and I hope that they will add to the circle as far as the back of the house as much as it could. This is a really similar project to one that was approved up on Highland Drive just a few months ago. Very similar, where they had that side access and they brought it in to feed the two houses, two in front, two in back. Very similar.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else? Seeing nothing, would you step back and we'll do the public hearing? Okay, we'll open the public hearing on this item. I have a card from Judy Short. And as the community counselor, you get 5 minutes.
I can talk that long.
Oh, try.
Not on this one. I think we're pleased with this one. The area has been kind of a mess for a while and going downhill. The house to the west on 27th looks like somebody expected to take it down and then stopped And it's just like a mess. So we're pleased to see it. And I think not having the connection to the cul-de-sac on the rear is actually a positive thing, because that was about the only negative comment that we heard the previous time around. This time we're still hearing it, as is Colin, but it's not affecting, it's not part of this plan, so it's not an issue. We like the fact that the house will remain as an affordable house. Rather than a grand remodel, it will be a semi-remodel, I guess, so that the prices aren't quite so expensive. Because you probably know the prices in Sugar House are pretty high. It's pretty scary. Probably none of us could live there if we were buying a house today. I hate to say that. And the only negative thing I heard, and this has nothing to do with it, but the first plan showed nice traditional houses that blended in with the houses that are on both streets. And these are the stark modern type, which are not our favorite. But that has nothing to do with the plan. I just had to say it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I have a card from Mike Thompson. Mike? You're up.
Did I scribble again?
Yeah, you scrambled a little bit. State your name for the record, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Mike Jameson. I'm here primarily because I am the property owner adjacent to that on the south side. And I looked at the plat. I was just able to look at it today online, and it looks like a better plan than they had last time through here. One of my big concerns, not a big concern, but a concern is there was not a lot of detail in there talking about what kind of lighting was approved. Is it shielded lighting? What are they doing in there? I don't know what the city is requiring on that. I was looking at the landscaping. It showed very limited amount of landscaping coming down through that access off of 27th, and then the driveway turns back in this way. And I don't know what they're going to do about, landscaping inside of there, but there was no other landscaping. And my concern is that south side, the property right there, there's going to be 2 units built in there, and I see no landscaping, no fencing, no wall, no nothing through there. So I'm kind of concerned about the impact it has on the existing residents on Sierra Park Circle. I just talked to Mr. Strasser, and he told me that 3 and 4, the garages are going to be not facing into each other off the sides, but they're going to be moved up to the north side of the buildings themselves. So you're going to have 4 units. They're going to have facing garages. Now that's not on this plat. So one of my concerns is also how a project can come in and get approved and pushed up the level to the city commission with an okay when we don't even have the actual layout of what's going to be going on there. Like I said, the impact to the existing neighborhoods around there with no fencing back there, which I guess is not the end of the world, but the other impact too is that I just want to make you aware of it, that a lot of people are concerned about the fact that, it's awfully modernistic and doesn't fit well in the neighborhood. My opinion on that is if it's built nice, looks nice, is landscaped, and is well taken care of, it probably looks a lot better than a lot of the stuff that's out there. And the other comment I might want to make to you while I'm sitting here in my 2 minutes is the rezoning of some of these properties around, especially out in that area. you can see them all over the place. There's little pocket parks of these brand-new, modern-looking, modernist 2 or 3 store, I don't know how big they build them, in a neighborhood where they stand out like a sore thumb. And to me, that kind of somewhere missing the mark of trying to make a contiguous neighborhood, even though I understand we're trying to accommodate housing, low-income housing, affordable housing for people. So anyway, those were my concerns. Like I said, the map as it showed is not
Mr.
correct.
Jameson, your 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Sorry about going over.
It's okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this topic? Come up, state your name into the microphone, and you get 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Gabriel Echeverria, and my girlfriend and I live in that Sierra Park circle down the street a ways. We just wanted to touch on the fact that we appreciate the applicant's redesign that doesn't include the access to the circle, because I feel like was said before, that was one of the most important concerns last time around because of how it would impact our small, quaint street. As for the access and the aesthetics of the proposed plan, we thought that was reasonable, but we did have a question about whether the applicant had thoroughly considered the idea of 3 plots because of the limitations of the small 3rd and 4th plot tucked in there, and just wanted to get his thoughts and input on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on this item. I think we need to bring the applicant back up. Lex, do you want to come up too? I think there was a couple questions there for you related to lighting and landscaping. Can you
I can address
those?
that.
Can you?
I
Okay.
don't want you to get confused here and think this is a design review process. It's not. It's about the subdivision design. It's not about the design of the homes. There is no design control in that area for single-family homes. The city does have standards for lighting. They have to be directed down. They can't shine onto the neighbors. In terms of landscaping, there really is no landscaping requirement between zones that are both residential. What else?
Fencing, is there any kind of fencing?
Fencing's not required. I mean, if they want to do that, that could be an amenity for those backyards, but that's not something that we can require.
And there's no, last time there was, but there's no current walkway or anything that connects.
No, there was
that
talk
we've
of a
lost that.
walkway
Yeah.
that went through from 27 to the circle, but that's not on the table at this point.
Yeah, in regards to the 3 lots rather than 4, we think that the 4 really are the best use of the land, and as far as we think they're absolutely functional, and the 2 lots in the back may be even better than the 2 lots in the front because of the fact that there is noise from 27 South. So we're pretty content with the configuration as is. What else was there?
Can you speak to the garage, the way the garage is face on
Sure.
3 and 4?
Sure. So we configured the garages so that they pretty much face each other, but they're offset. So it wouldn't be like if you back straight out, you'd end in the other garage. You really wouldn't. So there's plenty of room, we think, for moving around. And we were able to stick a few parking spots. So everybody will have an additional parking spot. So every lot will have 3 spots rather than the required 2.
Can you walk me
And
through?
that's it right there.
Can you walk me through the what is taking up that 16 feet of your front setback on lots 3 and 4? Is it the garages? Because you're asking for a reduced setback on lots 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Like-
So the front 2, the front 2 have a 20-foot, or the average block setback as required, and same with the side yards. They're actually, outside is 10, inward is 4 and 4, and then 10 towards the easement. The back two will have 10 on the side and 10 on the back, and we're asking for a 4-foot setback in the front so that we can push the house up forward, bringing it more into the development, more clustered, rather than impacting, possibly Mike's, Jameson's property and the properties, Sierra Park Circle on that south side.
So Lex, there's a 10-foot setback in the backyard, and then there should be a 20, pardon?
It's 20.
So you have 20 feet in the backyard.
Right now we're proposing 10, but I guess because of fire code, we're going to be 14 feet off the back.
Well,
I'm sorry, let's hold up the train here. Can you do me a favor and look at what the rear yard requirement is in the R15? Okay, so you're going off the percentage, which you're talking about the 14 feet, correct? So that's where the 14 feet comes from. It's a percentage of the lots.
It's a rather narrow lot, so 20% of.
So they're meeting the ordinance for the rear yard at 10
Yes.
feet.
No, they're meeting the ordinance that states that the rear yard is 25% of the lot depth or 20 feet, whichever is less.
Yeah.
So the 14 feet in this case on those two lots would be less, and that was what would be required. So I said hold up the train because I wanted to make sure, because what I had been presented was those houses would meet all setbacks except for the front yard, and that is still valid.
Well, maybe we can dumb this down for me, Lex. I'm still trying to understand. How many feet is the setback in the backyard? 10 feet?
No, it's not 10 feet.
It's 25% of the lot depth.
Which is equaling how many feet for the backyard on lots 3 and 4? 14?
14 feet.
So you have 14 feet in the backyard for lots 3 and 4 in this proposal.
Yes, and also the other thing is also fire code dictates that they're 14 feet away from the property line.
Okay. And so then the front yard, you want just 4 feet,
Yes, please.
which if you didn't get the front yard setback, you would need 14 feet there as well?
No, I think you would need 20. What are you saying? On the back?
Front.
Front
I think
setback.
the front, again, the code is 20 feet or the average block setback. But since they're not on a block, there's no, you know what I mean? Because they're not on 27 South.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because I get a little leery with such small setbacks, but I'm trying to put it in context of how these lots are situated. And I want to understand how they'll be away from certain property lines, et cetera, that they're meeting the right codes. And if you were, so in your revised plans, is the garages facing north, or are they still facing each other east and west? They're facing north. So is it the garages that are going to be protruding into what would be your setback, or is it the house?
You're talking about the houses in the back?
3 and 4. Yeah, 3 and 4. So you're reorienting those garages to face north instead of east and west. And so
But they're still on the side, Amy.
Huh?
I mean, they're not moving from that location. The door faces north.
The door, I'm asking about the garage, not the door to the house.
No, the garage door.
So now I'm totally confused. So how this is, these garages are facing east and west.
They protrude east and west.
Oh,
but the
I'm understanding you
doors
now.
are
I get
on
it now.
the
So the
north.
driveway is facing north. I get it.
It's kind of hard to see.
I get it. No, I get totally on board with that now.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to have a better understanding if I'm going to vote for such a reduced setback of how it's going to be functioning and looking for the rest of the property. Thank you.
Another comment, we are providing 5 guest parking spots within the cluster. So if you do have guests or family coming over, there's additional parking within the site to help cover that. But
And again, to just cover the front setback, these are internal setbacks that we're really talking about. We're not really talking about a front yard. I mean, because these houses, the front yard's going to be, the side of it really.
I totally appreciate that, but I think those residents probably want some sort of a front yard as well. So
Well, they'll have a yard. It's just like whether it's the front as like the front setback is different than where their
I
functional
appreciate
yard
that
would be.
they're interior, but I still try to think of the residents that are going to be living there and how then those reduced setbacks affect who's next to them.
These yards will, as proposed right there, are much bigger than most of the subdivisions that are currently in the area.
Really, in my mind, for lots 3 and 4, because they are interior, I understand what you're saying, but it's really a question of the market. I mean, those houses will sell.
I'd like to ask a question, please. We don't have the floor plans for number 3 and number 4, and I understand that this isn't the appropriate time to discuss those. On the other hand, you're asking for a setback release based on the footprint of these buildings. And I would like to ask whether this entry pavilion thing you've got sticking out into what would be the front setback is absolutely essential, because it seems to me if it's similar to the one on the one that we do have a floor plan for, it's basically just a canopy. And why would you come to us for, instead of having a 4-foot setback, you would have a 10-foot or more setback if you didn't have that canopy feature there. So it seems like perhaps that is something to redesign as you move forward, and therefore we won't necessarily have to have a 4-foot setback, which would then allow you to bring those buildings way up to and crowd it all up a lot. And I don't think we want to do that. Does that make sense to everybody, what I'm saying here? Okay, so it's just assuming that that's some kind of an entry feature that's been put on here. That can be redesigned, and especially if it's just outside, not that I don't think outside is important, I do, but it's also, that particular feature is not particularly consistent with the architecture as I see it here. I also so I think that would give us a setback that I don't know what the scale would be, but it looks around maybe 11 feet. So that's a much better setback than the 4-foot one you're talking about. Maybe not quite that big. It's also reasonable that these buildings have little ears, and that's what's causing your setback problems. The little ears. You know what I'm saying about the design? And you're not really particularly crowded on this site from the standpoint of design. So it seems to me that you can make all your, not necessarily the 20-foot front setback, but at least give people a little 10-foot yard there without this design, the way it is.
There's a couple things there.
Okay.
One, I think that the architect wanted to make the front door a little more prominent. So it's not just a flat structure and it's like garage door.
Right, I understand that, and I agree with that sentiment.
And because of the confined space, I think that it was not only is it a necessity to have that smaller, front yard, but really an interior side yard. It's very consistent with the side yard of the front 2 lots, right? And so they're just as close as, they're actually closer than, what we're proposing. Really, the yard for the back 2 lots will be on the side. They'll have a side door there and a foreseeably double sliding door accessing their yard. And I don't foresee them, if we even had a larger front as it is in the back too, that would and be landscaped.
I guess what I'm saying is that I would rather not approve a 4-foot setback when all you really need is 11 or 10, and therefore you would go ahead, you would be, since we're not approving plans or designs or anything like that tonight, you would be able to pull the entire building up to a 4-foot setback if we approve that.
Then why don't we word it that way? We could perhaps word it the 4-foot setback to that entryway feature, because I think the articulation would probably be nice, and word it with the 11-foot setback to the bulk of the home.
Wall of the house, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That would be fine to me, or whatever it is, 11.
Yeah.
I would hope that would not be something that would be attached to the conditions of the approval.
Definitely would be.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Would you be open to a condition that just the entryway can only be protruding out? And so I think, her Commissioner, she's concerned is that you're going to move the whole property line up there, and we're not going to get the layout that you're showing here. So if the condition was that, you have a normal setback with the exception of the the entryway of, what's that, probably 6 feet wide?
So the problem more arises on unit 3. It's just a really small house, and with the height restrictions in the area, we could, we would have. I mean, I would have to reconsider, and I would have to reconsider the project on that one.
But if we're saying that the entryway, that you have to have a entryway can be the only thing that kind of extends out past 10-foot setback, 4x6 or 6x6 entryway. That's what's being presented here. So I'm not sure I understand why that condition doesn't work for you.
I'm not sure why either.
Okay. I think the entryway is important for the look of the house and
Yeah, and I'm
No, we're not saying take the
permitting you to keep
entryway
the
away.
entryway, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying only the entryway can protrude into the front yard setback, or extend into. Not the house cannot.
If this is 4 feet to the property line, what they're suggesting is they would grant that 4 feet, and then the rest of the bulk of the house would be, I don't know how many feet this is, 11 or whatever. I think the concern that Brenda Shear is bringing up is that if they, across the board, say you get a 4-foot setback, you could potentially move the house out all the way to that 4 feet. I think that's the concern. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And is that an issue?
No, that's not an issue. It's just, I have a vision for the project, and I've thought about it for years, and I really want to bring it to fruition. And when you start attaching things that we just thought of because we looked at it for a couple minutes.
But is the layout that's presented here,
Sure.
is this your
So
vision
generally
or
consistent
no?
with what you're planning to do.
So there's just lot number 4 is a bit small, the layout, and so that I think we're fine to put that on there.
So
Fine.
I think this body might move forward with making a recommendation that's going to keep you pretty close to what this layout is.
Sure.
And are you comfortable with that, or do you want to go back and make sure and then come back here before?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Well said.
Unless
I
we
can
can
prov-
move,
it-
unless
yeah.
we can move the Reagan sign, then we'll come back.
Good luck with Reagan. Any more questions for the applicant?
I guess I would just say if we could just make it 10 feet, that would be better than 11, just so it's conforming. Basically, it would be a 10-foot setback all the way around.
So you're okay with 10 feet
So
and then only the protrusion for the entryway can go to 4
That's,
feet.
and that matches
As
what you're proposing here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This is how the
Okay.
process works. This is great.
Are you sure you're okay?
Yes.
We're good.
Okay, any more questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll let you step back.
Okay.
Do we have any questions for Lex? He's full of information, I can tell. Nope, okay, well, you can
Thank you.
step back. Discussion here, or does somebody have a motion ready? Brenda, you came up with the,
So what we're proposing is that we limit the setback for lots 3 and 4 to 4 feet for the entryway and to 10 feet for the building envelope, excluding the entryway.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's correct.
Madam Chairman, based on the analysis and findings listed in the staff report testimony and the proposal presented, I move that the Planning Commission approve the subdivision and plan development request as proposed. The Planning Commission finds that the proposed project complies with the review standards as demonstrated in attachments E and F of the staff report. The approval of the plan development and subdivision request is subject to the following conditions. A final plat application is required and shall be submitted to finalize the plat, and compliance with all city department and division comments and requirements as noted in Exhibit G. And number 3, the front yard setback of lots 3 and 4 shall be 10 feet, with the exception that an entrance feature may protrude up to 6 feet into the front yard setback.
You wouldn't accept a modification to 4 just to let them, we're talking about 2 feet
No, she said it the other way.
the other way.
She did it,
Saying
yeah, the inverse.
Got it.
4 feet this way, she's saying 6 feet that way.
Comment withdrawn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Adrian. Any more discussion? Confusion? Okay. We'll vote. Adrian?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
Matt?
Yes.
Yes.
Weston?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
The motion passes. Your plan's approved. Okay, we'll move on to our third item, the zoning text amendment for HLC appeals. Amy, tell us about it. Would you take your discussion out in the hall, please? Thank you.
So I'm hoping this is quick and easy because the staff report, I think, was all of 14 pages. So I'm hoping that's an indication of that. So this is a request it's a mayor-initiated petition, and it's for changes to the appeals process for decisions of Historic Landmark Commission decisions. The purpose of these amendments is for consistency with House Bill 315 that was just passed by the state legislature in 2019. These changes would also make it more consistent with how other appeals of administrative decisions are processed. So staff's recommending to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council. And just to give you some background on this proposal, some of you may have remembered in 2017 when the state legislature passed some historic preservation amendments, and our existing ordinance is a result of those. So those included establishment of a historic preservation appeal authority in Salt Lake City because of our form of government and because appeals of Landmark Commission decisions are administrative. That appeal authority is the mayor. It also allowed the applicant to choose who they wanted to appeal to, so they could choose either the mayor or the appeals hearing officer, and then it allowed them to have 30 days to appeal a decision of a Landmark Commission decision. Initially, it was 10 days. So in a nutshell, basically, we are just removing the preservation appeal authority. So removing the mayor from that process, and those appeals would just be processed through an appeal authority. The 30 days is still the allowed appeal time period for the applicant. And this chart shows that process, and then the changes are just highlighted in red. So I can answer any questions if you have any.
Questions? I don't think so. We'll let you can just sit there.
Okay.
We'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no one who wishes to speak, we'll close the public hearing on this item. Bring it back to the commission. Any discussion? A motion.
I like a motion.
Thank you, Matt.
I think this is great. I actually really objected to the state law, so this is, I think it's really good just to remove the political aspect of this whole process. So it's good for everyone, the public, the mayor, and the developer. So based on the analysis and findings listed in the staff report, testimony presented or lack thereof, I move the commission forward a positive recommendation to the city council regarding the proposed amendment to section 21A06 and 21A16 related to the appeals of the historic landmark commission decision. The commission finds the proposed amendments comply with the review of the standards as demonstrated in attachment C of the staff report.
I'll second that.
And Carolyn seconds. Any discussion? No. Adrian?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Agree.
Matt?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Weston?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Clark?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Move to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.